Hello and welcome to the Glazov Gang, to our third segment. My guests tonight are Mr. Ben Shapiro, author of Primetime Propaganda, Shari Goodman from Act for America, she's a chapter leader, and Rob Nelson, former Fox News host and author. I'm not Jamie Glazov, I'm Josh Brewster, and let's begin the session. Wow, what a great discussion tonight. I want to go over to something that's dominated the media for, it's going on a year now, and that's the Occupy movement. I think a lot of people are scratching their head about who these people are and where they came from, and there's a lot of comical angles about, oh, they're smoking a lot of dope, they're hanging out in the street, they're hippies, oh, they're brats compared to the hip. People don't really understand the underpinnings of these groups. Some of these are Soros-led groups. And I don't think people really understand where the Occupy movement is coming from. Rob, I want to start with you. Let me just get some quick thoughts from you about the Occupy movement, because I think this is a sign of, honestly, I think it's a communist revolution, and I don't think it has anything to do with the Democratic Party or anything resembling a normal party. I think that this is the far left, and they are emboldened.
Well, I'm going to disagree with you that it's a communist revolution. Here's what I really think. Leaving out the substance of what they are about, some of which I actually agree with, some of which I think makes no sense, and the whole idea of a leaderless movement to me is, I don't know how you have a leaderless movement, but I think what happened with the Tea Party, the Occupy movement, is the other extreme. The Tea Party emerged, typically more conservative, often middle flyover, so-called flyover state people, fed up with the system, fed up with the way politics had turned into this just two-sided standoff where nothing was being done, even to some extent fed off with big corporations taking advantage and the banks out of control, and said, we've had enough. But they tended to be very conservative, more Republican or libertarian.
So the media laughed at them.
The media derided them. But that's typical of a lot of the mainstream media. Then the Occupy movement came out, which I think was the other extreme. A lot of people without the anarchists and the leftists, but basically against a lot of the same things. Against wanting bank reform, fed up with the fact that there was so much corporate influence in politics, the bailouts. Even things like, wanting to, the mortgage situation, forgiving student loans, trying to help the bottom, so-called bottom 90%, which is the middle of the country plus. So I feel like it's the middle that's still waiting to emerge in a true, free movement that bursts out and kind of does it. So I don't think it's some conscious manipulative thing. By the way, I think the media pretty much made they kind of kept the Occupy movement off the media for a long time. I was surprised CNN and
Obama and Pelosi are saying we're with you.
Now,
and what that scares me about, and I'm going to turn this to, I'm going to go to Ben next, and then I'm going to share. But what scares me about this is that these are real hardcore, anti-American, anti-Israel, very, very much far left groups, and this is starting to scare me a bit. Go ahead, Ben.
I think there's two things. I think there's the Occupy movement, and then I think there are the messages that people are reading out of the Occupy movement. I think they're two different things. I think the Occupy movement itself is, if you've ever been to an Occupy camp, it's largely driven by, as you said, a lot of communists. There are a lot of anarchists. There are a lot of people who are backed by union dollars. You can go there and you can see the union signs on the wall. And it is, a lot of it is astroturfed, and it is backed by the Democratic Party in large part, which is why you have President Obama endorsing it, even so much as this week, Jay Carney being asked about it, and Jay Carney basically fussing around, refusing to disown the Occupy movement. The Occupy movement itself is not a good thing. Some of the things that the Occupy movement pretends that it says are actually very much in coincidence with some of the things that the Tea Party says, right? It's kind of it's like a Venn diagram. Here's the Tea Party, and here's the Occupy movement. The centers are poles apart. But where the crossover is when they talk about the bailouts, when they talk about government moving with business, right? When they're talking about corporatism, which is something the Tea Party is very much against, Occupy pretends it's against it, but then they want more government intervention, right? So what that is that was a way to leverage American dislike of the bailouts into support of a redistributionist movement, which is precisely the opposite of being against the bailout. So it's a very well thought out liberal program to kind of trick the American public.
Let me turn it over to Shari here. Shari, what are your thoughts on the Occupy movement?
Well, I say follow the money, and obviously they receive funding. They couldn't operate if they didn't receive their funding. Where do they receive their funding from? It's been said that they received their funding from SEIU, but George Soros movement, and those movements are grounded on the left. I believe, as you said, there are people that are on the bottom who have joined forces with it. They see a common enemy, which is capitalism. Ultimately, it's a destruction of capitalism for some, for the Obama administration, it may be a means, a vehicle to create as he said, he wanted to transform the United States. And perhaps it's his way of unleashing the forces that will help him create socialism.
That's a very good point. Now I'm going to turn this over to Rob. But Rob, I want to mention something here. I think that this whole thing about how far to the left. Hold on. This thing about them being so far to the left, asking essentially the same question as the people on the right who are derided. It fascinates me. But here's the thing, Rob. Socialism will never be announced. It's just a matter of degree. It's a matter of percentages. It's not going to be a big announcement. But that bailout, Rob. Those bailouts were the beginning of the end, I think, for our economy in a lot of ways.
Okay, can I pick up where she
Go
went?
for it.
Okay, so Shari, I just think you're paranoid. I mean, and let me tell you something. Honestly, your arguments and your belief and your passion would be, I think, would have far more effective reach to the people who aren't on board with you yet, but might be willing to be, if you didn't go to the paranoid place of always seeing it like a big conspiracy, which is what the left does too. The left sees it as a big conspiracy. That's why so much of the left is convinced that George Bush actually set up 9/11.
Well, wait a minute. There's people behind this movement.
No, wait. There's people behind every movement. There were people, and the media came out and pointed out the groups behind the Tea Party. But the reality is,
the groups. Well, hold on.
No, they did.
Stop.
Wait.
Stop for a second and name the groups behind the Tea Party.
I'm just saying.
But
I'm just saying the media came out periodically and was saying there were. I think at the end of the day, there are always groups behind any movement. There's people who get on board and support it. That's different than saying Obama. That's different than saying Obama. If he was going to come up with a way to create something that could pull the middle class and disrupt the system, he could do a lot better than invent the Occupy movement, which is a bunch of kind of anarchists want.
No, what the Occupy movement was designed to do from a political perspective, and this is what Obama used it as. Whether he created or whether he co-opted. I said whether he created or co-opted it. The bottom line is it was a political tool that he used very well, which was he used it as a sign that Americans were deeply dissatisfied with the present economic system and required more government interventionism. And I'm telling you, if you ever visit an Occupy camp, and I visited a couple of them, you'll go and you will see that their program on the wall is. It's extraordinarily communistic.
One thing that I'm going to say this. One thing, and then we go to Shari. One thing these Occupy folks never will get. There is not a capitalist alive who would have bailed out one of those stinking banks. Go for it, Shari.
Well, when you say paranoid,
capitalists don't bail out.
Okay. When you say paranoid,
no, capitalists don't bail out.
To be paranoid,
and he said he had to save capitalism from himself by not using.
He was wrong, Rob. He was wrong.
Okay.
He was wrong.
This particular movement,
I agree.
They display their ideology. So what I fear, they actually stand for. Obama actually said it. He said he wants to transform the United States of America. I don't want to transform the United States of America, and I don't think most Americans do.
Obamacare is coming.
So therefore, therefore, when you say you are paranoid, I don't understand what you really mean by that. To be paranoid is to have an irrational fear.
I don't think Shari's fears are irrational, Rob. I think
it's extreme.
They're pretty rational.
Here's what I think it is, and this is because you guys agree that Obama wants to transform America, which really means he has a secret agenda to turn us into a communist country, which is not.
I don't think it's a secret.
Socialist.
I don't think he does. I think he
honestly. A European-style socialist country? No, that is absolutely.
I think there are elements because he wanted public health insurance, but I mean basically, Obama. I joke. Listen, as an independent, I call Obama Bush Light.
He nationalized the banks. He nationalized the audience.
The Patriot Act is nothing compared to to what he passed in terms of.
Look at his deeds. I'm sorry, Rob. Look at his deeds. Look at his deeds. But look at his deeds.
Some of them, but again, I think you're attributing more. I don't think he has this agenda. I just think the country's a mess, and he tried to bail it out the wrong way by putting more government in, bailing things out.
Let's let Shari continue.
He failed to do it. He did it all the wrong way.
Perhaps your perspective is utopian. If you look at his deeds are to nationalize. He nationalized the banks. He nationalized the auto industry. Nationalized our health care.
Well, he didn't really nationalize the banks. For better or worse.
Well, no, they didn't nationalize the banks, but
he gave them a ton of money and let them go and do whatever they wanted. He basically used our money to make them.
But
his deeds speak for themselves.
Guys, I got to wrap up this segment. I just want to say something, and I would imagine everybody at this table would probably agree. Socialism is not going to be announced. It's a matter of degree, Rob. And if 10 or 20 or 50 or 70 million people get tossed into Obamacare, you have another degree. You know what I mean? It's a matter of degrees. It's not going to be we're socialists.
I think the court's going to overturn it, by the way.
Oh, I'm glad. You know what? I'm glad to hear that. I'll end on that happy note. You know what? Let's finish up this segment. I want to say thank you all for coming. I could go for a couple more hours, but everybody go find Ben Shapiro's Primetime Propaganda. And Shari, thank you so much from Act for America. She's a chapter leader. And there he is, Rob Nelson. Last call. This is the last call. This is your final warning. 10 common sense solutions to America's biggest problems. Talking about Occupy Wall Street, go to the Freedom Center, get this groovy pamphlet. And I will talk to you next time. Thanks so much to Jamie Glazov.